Welcome to Decoded Dialogues, where tech talks and stories spark transformation. I'm your host, Crystal Fernandez, and today we're diving into commerce transformation with Eric Roverud, Group Vice President, Solution Engineering, Oracle, an industry leader who's been at the forefront of innovation. Eric has been helping organizations navigate everything from shifting consumer expectations to the rise of AI-driven experiences. Retail and supply chain isn't what it used to be. Consumers want personalization, sustainability, and seamless experiences, and businesses are racing to keep up. So, what does the future look like? And with the pending holiday season looking a little different this year, how do retailers balance profitability with purpose? And where does technology fit into all of this? Let's get into it. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this space.
Yeah, sure. First of all, Crystal, thanks for having me, and I'm really looking forward to our chat here today.
Sure.
I got into technology as a business leader. I was a finance and accounting guy by trade and got bit by the technology bug many decades ago when we were deploying technology to help improve our lives in the company that I was in. And then I jumped right in from there. And today, fast forwarding, 30 years now, I have the privilege of leading a team that are both business process experts and technology innovation evangelists here at Oracle, as you mentioned. And what we do is we engage, we listen, collaborate with our customers to apply solutions and drive business outcomes that solve either real world challenges or maybe open up new ways of doing business or reimagining the new ways of working. And what I really love about it is it's all focused on the key industries and markets that serve consumers, all the way from retailers to wholesale and distributors, all the way to the consumer goods manufacturers. So we serve a very incredibly dynamic and vast customer base, and believe me, it's exciting.
Awesome. We love this. So, Eric, like I said, with the holidays approaching, let's talk about the changing consumer challenges that supply chain is seeing. How is AI playing an integral role in the consumer experience? And when you think about retail today compared to 5 years ago, what's the biggest shifts you've seen?
Yeah, I love that question. It's incredible to think about 5 years ago, right?
Right?
So just to kind of reframe everyone, right? It sounds like such a brief moment in time 5 years ago, but that was 2020.
Right?
5 years ago from right now would be 7 months into the pandemic if we were in 2020.
Correct.
And we may all remember panic buying was still popping up. There was real concern around income and wages, online shopping and home delivery services were literally for anything you ever want on the planet, they've been going through the roof. And frankly, consumers drove the economy for not only just core necessities, but I like to think that we as consumers also drove it because it was ways to kind of try to create normalization again in our
Sure.
life. So really a dramatic and perhaps forced change in consumer behavior, either jolted or kickstarted or poured fuel into every retailer on the planet at that point, and it defined new ways of engaging and servicing their customers. So, things today, you ask about what's changed, things today that I probably, well, I think others do, but maybe take for granted, were either invented or accelerated and into mass production in the last 5 years, kickstarted by that 5 years ago. So think about contactless checkout with tap to pay or self-scanning or curbside and
Yeah.
buy online and pick up store. All newer ideas or virtual and adaptive reality, right? That was kickstarted for buying experiences, like in fashion and makeup and home goods.
Sure.
Think about subscriptions and replenishment models, man. They had a huge boost then, right? So certainly not a new business model, but they grew, I saw statistics 30, 40, 50, 60, 80% year over year. And then guess what? Us consumers, we love that convenience so much, we stuck with it, right? We kept going with
Right.
those models. So that was great. The need it soon model of consumers is
Yeah.
now turned to the need it now model of consumerism. So you think about like Instacart comes to mind, which was seen as sort of a niche player back then, when it was founded in 2012, but it doubled income and revenue and reach between 2019 and 2020. You got $1.5 billion. So in that 1 year, doubled to 1.5, right? And then they just continue to expand. All
Wonderful.
generated because of this change in behavior Think about brand loyalty, right, and awareness.
Right.
That became
Right.
even more relevant, fueled by these conveniences and engagement models that accelerated, brand affinity.
Right.
And as consumers exited out, they shifting to maybe healthier lifestyles and choices. They wanted more of that opportunity. That fed that consumer desire to support more sustainable and eco-friendly choices, right? So they wanted that choice. And really, I think the last observation here over the last 5 years that's been really fueled is this this incredible service that the retailers are offering their customers by all these changes. It also
Mhm.
created a tremendous strain on both sides of the supply chain, right? So if you think about the production side and delivery of goods side of the supply chain, sensing and adjusting to variability and demands under a much tighter time frame, that was a huge change. And then also on the returns and exchanges or the reverse logistics side of it, these high engagement models that we created created significantly more returns, which of course drives up cost to serve. So that was another
Right.
impact of all this choice.
Would you say it's a fair statement that it changed how brick and mortar operated as well? It really catapulted them into this online market and, like you said, this sort of instant gratification situation, correct?
That's right. And what it really compelled them all to do, I use the example of Instacart, which was a commerce first organization, but I don't think that there's a single, brick and mortar chain. And I was picking on food here a little bit, but food
Sure.
or anything that does not have a delivery service of some sort, or they offload that delivery service to other purveyors and providers because that's the way that the world thinks right now. And
Yeah.
I think you're right. You can absolutely say that that was pretty much created or accelerated because of 5 years ago.
Okay, well, I think I may already know the answer to this, but consumers seem to expect more than ever, right? Personalization, convenience, sustainability. Which of these do you think is driving the most change right now?
Well, gosh, a great question, and the great thing about this question is it doesn't matter how I answer this one because I'll either
Yeah.
be right, wrong, or something in the middle, just depending on
Right.
who's listening and their perspective. So it kind of
Sure.
reminds me like my around my house this time of year around debating Thanksgiving side dishes, which is the best one, or which tree to cut down at the tree farm. Lots of
Right.
opinions at different. So um, Crystal, my perspective on this is personalization. It's an admittedly huge and broad term, but it still seems to be a primary behavioral driver at the end of the day. That can emanate in many ways. You could look at it from a personalization from my service experience. Maybe I have a product issue, or personalization of my decision process
Hmm.
as I'm buying or shopping, or personalization of the actual item that I'm buying. Could be
Sure.
personalized to me, personalized promotions, right? Speaking specifically to me, not just to the masses. So that being said, I have no doubt that across most categories, also in this current value seeker environment, because that's where we are now in a value seeker environment, consumers may love personalization. However, I still think pricing and availability are likely the deciding factors that
Sure.
generally win the day. And in fact, there was some data that saw that 2/3 of consumers will trade to lower cost options to seek value. So perhaps unwinding some of that personalization draw. But I think that's a case in point for the time that we're in now. I believe personalization is still the biggest driver, but I think we're in a value seeking environment right now. So
Right. The economy
um,
drives that, I think, right? Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if there's any kind of uncertainty, people are gonna maybe sacrifice quality for price.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Although I do
Yeah.
think that on personalization, I think one of the next frontiers to hit on this personalization concept is this rapidly developing, personalized AI agents that are trained to actually uh, do the shopping for you, right? Well
Yeah.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
Perhaps keeping you, of course, you as the human in the loop to make the decisions, but at least
Sure.
curating and filling your basket across multiple stores and categories and
Yeah. Yeah. I think I
uses.
read something about that this morning, actually.
Yeah, yeah. You talk about personalization. That's real personalization, like the
Right.
electronic personal shopper for you, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting change I think that we're going to see very quickly. Um, so how do you Okay, so kind of in that loop, right? How do you see transparency and ethical practices influencing loyalty?
You know, look, you and I as consumers, Crystal, we absolutely care about who we spend our money with and what we spend it on. And not just, the product or the service, but the who, right? The brand and what they
Yeah,
represent. And frankly, a brand has a lot of ways to ensure who they are is continually spoken out into the marketplace. It's not just their engagement with you and I and consumers and customers in the buying and servicing experience, but it's also in the public discourse through their own social media or through
sure.
sponsorships or events or organizations and causes, right? So that persona of a brand does help to drive loyalty, and it can help drive it away too, as
Yeah.
we've seen sometimes over the history, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
certainly, yeah. So certainly, how a brand, does business within the value chain of their products that they sell also matters. They want to track that. Speaking of transparency and ethical practices, they want to be able to track it, report on it, hold their suppliers accountable. Adjust potentially to more eco-friendly packaging, as an example, or shipping messages.
Sure.
Designing your product better, all the matter, all they all matter to loyalty. And interestingly, speaking of kind of things that you just read, I remember a report. It was about a year ago that the EU Commission did out of Europe, obviously, and they did a study
Sure.
that they said that they estimated 80%. This is fascinating. 80% of all product-related environmental impacts are actually determined or influenced by when the product was designed. Kind of the horses were out of the barn after you designed it on if you're going to be eco-friendly or not. You can put new
Yeah,
packaging around it, but the product potentially wasn't designed eco-friendly or was designed very eco-friendly.
I
So I think it
see.
kind of also shows how this transparency and ethical practices is not
Sure.
just you say to the outside, but it is what your product is designed and how it's designed to do, which unfortunately this data says was set when it was designed. 80% of it was at least.
Wow. Well, that's sort of a game changer, I think, right? Like thinking about like how we're actually designing products and how we are ethically sourcing them and, getting them ready for market. That is a very interesting factoid. I like I like that one. So okay, kind of in the same vein.
One other quick, hey,
Is
one
Yeah.
other
Oh
quick
yeah,
one that on
of course.
transparency I'd love to
Yeah.
throw out there,
Yeah.
is because we are in the digital age, is transparency and ethical practices around AI and data, right? I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety, probably a good word to say, around how does that work? How does that work? What is part of this transparency is what happens with all that? What is the AI doing with it? Right? It's a very
Right.
personal concern
Yeah,
because it's my data.
absolutely.
And I saw a stat, speaking of stats the other day, around 84% of shoppers, so 84%, big number of shoppers, worry about data traffic, using data tracking for personalized ads or browsing patterns and behaviors. So I think what that speaks to me and to retailers is that the confidence that a retailer or a brand needs to give to their customers of personalization with trust, not just personalization, but with trust of what you're using that personalized data is critical. And
Yeah.
retailers really do assess that.
Well, I personally, like, will opt out of allowing brands to track my buying patterns, things like that, unless I absolutely trust that brand. So I think that that is spot on what you're saying. Like, there is a lot of like concern out there in the marketplace, particularly as a consumer. Like who has my data and what are they using it for and where is it going? And unless I truly trust a brand, I typically will go and opt out of them being able to track that or being able to hold on to that information. So yeah, I think that is spot on. Um, so again, kind of in that vein, um, is there a gap between what consumers say that they want and what they actually buy? Mm.
Another great question, and I would say if we kind of divide this into two pieces, since we were talking about sustainability and ethical
Sure.
practices, we start, and then we'll talk a little bit about personalization. But so sustainability and ethical practices and eco-friendly choices. I think there's data that proves both sides of the story. Frankly, I've seen some interesting data this last year. Some of it speaks to, and I've seen it, heard it from my customers that really characterizes sustainability as, and I love this term, it was aspirational but limited impact.
Okay.
So aspirational but limited impact is kind of a lukewarm thing. And
Sure.
the note on this said, that 9 in 10 consumers, this is 9 in 10 consumers worry about sustainability. However, less than 4 in 10 were willing to pay a premium for a like product that was more environmentally friendly. But interestingly enough, where this doesn't pan out or actually gets a little bit more aligned or more correlated is in food, right? The outlier is food. So that was
Right.
somewhere around 6 in 10 actually would put their money where their proverbial mouth is and spend more on non-GMO foods. So
Right.
so pretty fascinating that there's a relatively large gap or a weak correlation, at least from that data point. I think personalization is
Oh, do you think eventually that we'll get to a point where we can create far greater sustainability in a more economical way so that it would entice people to spend their money in that way rather than make the selection of the other item that, maybe isn't quite as sustainable, isn't quite as eco-friendly because it costs less? Can we get to that
yeah,
point, do you think?
I think we are, and I think even if you looked at production costs just from the pure manufacturing and delivery side
Yeah.
of whatever goods, whether it's food or clothing or whatever happens to be. And if you look at these types of sustainable, eco-friendly components that are going into it, that they are dramatically cheaper, per unit now than they ever have been because the technology is there to do it. And then B, the consumers are driving it, so therefore there's other people investing. It used to be a very niche place.
Right.
It used to be local or very niche. Oh, I want to go create, non-GMO, sustainably farmed or grown, cotton, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Now that becomes the norm, right? People are expecting that. So it's not one or two providers that are doing this. It's hundreds and thousands of providers that are not doing this. So that naturally brings, the cost down. So we're getting there. I think the difference in that stat was how much more willing is a consumer to pay a super premium for a
Right.
gap and versus, would they still do that if the gap wasn't as big? And I think that would shrink it tremendously.
Yeah. That's great. That is great. Um, so kind of diving into the supply chain side of it, right? Supply chain disruptions have been a recurring headline recently, from tankers losing their loads in the ocean to tariffs. With the holiday season upon us, how are retailers adapting and how are consumers adapting?
Yeah, so there's a few terms that I've heard, kind of describing that's that's linked into the consumer and business psyche of late. They are, perma change and perma crisis, as in the word, right?
Right.
And they aren't intended, yeah, they aren't intended to be glib by any means or reduce
Sure.
the impact of constant change and crisis. It's just more of a factual state of existence, is where both businesses and consumers have kind of landed right now. Going back to the beginning of our conversation on what's changed over the last 5 years, I do think that there is some resilience that was built up in the consumer base during the last 5 years. And while brand loyalty, and personalization experiences remain, as we talked about, at the front of our minds, the reality is consumers are still under price pressure. Um, and retailers and manufacturers are still under cost pressure. And when those two things collide, it's usually tumultuous. Um, you mentioned costs and change because of global or local crises or tariffs or scarcity of a raw material. That will show up at the cash register, and consumers will react. But the question is how do they react, and how do we react as retailers? Um, so interesting because, as you could probably tell by now, I love stats and data, and I just love consuming this stuff. But I caught something from McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group (BCG) consumer confidence study, and they do it often, right? And right now, most of these studies say that consumer confidence year over year on the holidays spend is down 35% in consumer confidence. That's a huge number, and is predominantly driven because of cost pressure, price pressure,
Sure.
and when you talk about how do consumers and retailers adapt, it gets down to this personalization and micro segmentation of business. And I'm going to even take kind of a macration of the consumer, right? If you just look at
Yeah.
traditional, Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, the whole um, that whole perspective. Gen Z, they're saying, is expected to have the largest expected cut in spending this year, which is a huge population, down somewhere 23 to 34%, depending on the study. I mean, these are big numbers, right? Big negative numbers. whereas millennials, generally flat, right? So there's a little bit of difference between the two. Baby boomers, generally flat. Gen X is the only group that's predicted to increase spend because of all this pressure over the last year, and it's a pretty small single digit. The last I saw, maybe 3% is right around there.
Huh.
So you can see even this personalization at a generational level, much less a you and me level.
Sure.
There's quite differentiation, But before I move off this point, I do have to say that Gen X comment of increased spending, that's not a heads up to my family that they are personally getting more this year than
Right.
last year. That's just a general statement. Gen X in general, right? So don't get too excited, family and friends. Okay.
Right, right. Everyone in our generation.
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about this before, but AI is literally everywhere. It is on the tip of everyone's tongue. It is on every ad that we see. It's in every social media post we see. It's in everything that's like coming across our purview these days. So we keep talking about personalizations, forecasting, even fraud detection. Where do you see the biggest impact with AI in these spaces?
Yeah. Uh, so I've likely probably drained the pool on the personalization side already. As you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about that. I think
No,
that
I
is
think it's
definitely
great.
where the,
It's-
where the world's going.
yeah,
But I also think, to your point, AI is super critical on improving forecasting and product assortment and inventory location optimization. I spoke briefly of just a few quick use cases across supply chain. I think that there's also a fascinating use case where we've seen both generative AI and AI agents, and this is outside of the forecasting realm, but it's important because it helps retailers get product to market faster. So if you think
sure.
about generative AI, something that's generating new content based on content submitted into the AI model.
Sure.
Think about product descriptions, right? Item descriptions, and significantly reducing the time and increasing both the accuracy and effectiveness of this really painstaking process of generating
Right.
descriptions. Think about the dimensions of a product or, what's interesting about it. And then guess what? That product changes or there's a variation on that product. So then you have to update those again. Generative AI is an incredible tool that's changing the game in a very positive way around that and around product design and management, and frankly, letting the creatives, the people that are creating all this wonderful stuff we get to do, being creative, right? Instead of
Right.
description. So that's giving them more time back to go be creative and therefore, generate more potential revenue for a retailer or for a consumer manufacturer. On the AI agent front, I mentioned that's almost an immensely wide open frontier already to handle complex,
Yeah.
typically human centered, sometimes error prone workflows that span a lot of business processes. And that's really the sweet spot, right? Complex, multi business process spanning. Um, and maybe what's impactful there. We talked about personalization, a little bit of forecasting and assortment planning, but maybe a different use case here. Think about retailers who have you mentioned already stores and physical locations, right?
Right.
Facilities, and think about those stores and facilities and the importance that everything in them are working properly, right? It matters. It doesn't matter if you're a quick serve restaurant or a grocer or a fashion retailer. Your store is who you are, right? It's who you are to the public space that comes in. So imagine for a minute a maintenance AI agent, right? So that's constantly monitoring equipment in the store and automatically maybe creating and acting on sensor data to proactively fix maybe a store fixture or a point of sales, point of service device that's something's going out of tolerance on it. It
Sure.
signals and execute the work order, according to whatever your specific maintenance policies and agreements are, agentically with agents, before the breakdown even occurs. And guess what that turns into? That turns into saving your store associates wasted time because time is money when you're on the floor. Not losing out on sales, for instance. It turns into maintaining your customer experience and reducing your facilities costs because you didn't have to do that repair as soon as the failure point happened. You were proactive against it.
Sure. It's
Now
caught
think
in
about this in
advance.
terms. Massive amount of savings here. Now think about this because you asked the question in the context of holiday. Think about this in the time or in the context of holiday time. Imagine the positive impact that this would have. It was acted on and done beforehand, early, instead of, oh, I don't know, breaking down on Black Friday, because that was when the machine or the equipment or the facility or something there broke down. Now
Right.
that's a huge value prop for an AI agent.
Absolutely. Can you tell me what does a truly connected consumer journey look like in practice?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's this is probably a never ending aim at kind of the ultimate nirvana because the rapid change that
Sure.
occurs in both expectations and technology and these great creative people that are delivering this to us. So I think it's a great question, an interesting question. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that I can definitely say is what it really emanates from is just is a customer satisfied? Is a customer happy? Are they an advocate for you in the marketplace?
Yes.
And where they are and where they aren't is just really, really great ways to understand, are we optimizing on this connected consumer or customer journey?
Sure.
Ultimately, the connected journey is I believe truly defined by the customer. We can propose what that should look like. However, that outcome of joy, excitement, and passion for you and your brand, that's kind of what we all aim for in defining this connected customer consumer journey. We can put bots out there. We can have all sorts of great experiential engagement across both digital and physical platforms that are
Right.
connected. We can do that, but at the end of the day, a customer, you may choose a connected journey that looks dramatically different than what I choose. I maybe just want to get into a store, get my stuff done, get out, completely frictionless, right?
Right. Right.
Some may want to browse online, shop online, do it digitally, have it all served up to me. Say I'm going to go pick it up in the store. I am going to go pick it up in the store, but then also, grab a few other items. Have an experience where perhaps some AI in the store, whether it be sensors or not, detect that you are lingering around in an aisle for a while, so it pings the store associate to come and give you a higher touch level of service, asking you, oh, can I help you with that? Right? We've seen you thinking about that. That might be your ultimate, connected consumer journey. Where my
Sure.
ultimate connected consumer journey for that experience might be, no, I browsed online. I want to pick it up. I have things that I have to get off to. I just want to get out frictionless as possible.
Right.
So I think
Right.
the whole connected consumer journey is just fascinating, and I think it's fascinating because it is defined by personalization.
Yeah. I think that is our theme today. Can you share an example of a real world retailer using AI or data in a way that's really impressed you? I get the feeling that you've got that, just kind of what you've been talking about. If you can't use the customer's name, that's okay, but I'd really
Yeah,
would love to hear about it.
yeah, totally. No, I'll give you a couple, and I will happily use their names.
Okay, great. Love that.
And yeah, so one of them, and I'll start over across the pond with our European friends and a commerce retailer by the name of Answear. Startup back in 2011. Um, Started as a e-commerce play in fashion retailer. They generally resell high-end fashion brands, but they also have now launched their own female-oriented own brand that they actually manufacture or co-manufacture with someone and label themselves. And I bet you can probably guess what their objective was, right? Which was to get more personalized
Yeah, of
and
course.
customer centric.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So the theme continues in all that they do. And what I thought was really fascinating as they grew and they expanded into other markets, other industry, or I'm sorry, other countries, is they really had to move from a product centric model of planning and assortment to leveraging this massive amount of data and AI in their decision making to shift to a very customer centric plan. Because they were gathering this great e-commerce data and this great behavioral data, and they had to shift from product to customer. So they adopted a few of our technologies, and they completely shifted their model nearly overnight. That was enabled by AI to get to that fine level detailed of assortment and product and inventory planning, sorry, based on specific customer behaviors and expected customer behaviors, as opposed to just shipping a certain set of size, styles, and colors to every single
Sure.
location, throwing it up in the air and say, well, we hope people come and get it, right? So
So the market shifted what they were doing.
that's correct. That's
Wow,
correct.
that's great. But that's great that they followed that they followed what the market was telling them. Like, they actually listened and went, "Oh, you know what? We should probably shift our business a bit." That's great.
And I think their geographic expansion also, they knew that, right? When they were coming
Yeah,
out of 2 to 3 to 4 countries and expanding across Europe and then into northern, I believe they're in northern Africa now from a shipping standpoint. They knew that those were different markets, right? So
sure.
they also knew that they had to go to the customer side as opposed to their kind of traditional assortment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's great.
Yeah, I'm happy to share another one too, which is
Yeah?
equally exciting and very relevant to the holiday times, which is
Okay.
Hellsberg Diamonds, an
Oh, yeah?
often gifted item holidays. So
Yep.
they're pretty busy right now. Yeah, so they leverage some built-in AI and data science capabilities that also help to move away from kind of this traditional assortment planning and algorithm to this AI driven demand transference. And what that means is it's a data science innovation that strikes to again kind of personalization. But now what Hellsberg has been able to focus in on is how their customers, prospective customers, kind of see, react to, and prioritize products and product attribute, whether it's cut, or size, or clarity, or type of jewelry. And they use this very deep transaction level data. I'm talking just trillions and trillions of data elements to get down to the customer specific level journey, back to our conversation on what's a customer specific journey that
Mhm,
they enjoy. And they
mhm.
use this AI and data to go even further and identify shopping and switching patterns to understand which attributes are actually driving the actual buy, a walk away, or switching to an alternative product based on each customer's and that could be either to a higher or lower value item, right? So they
Sure.
use this use for, and then they use this for specific pricing and promotion decisions too, right? So it's really exciting to see this level of personalized demand and product availability. They're actually putting product in place in stores because they know the customers that shop there, and they're seeing this transfer of demand by a customer's behavior. And this data science through the AI that was built in there is being just a game changer for them because of what they sell, right? Very highly specialized, highly high cost, high touch engagement model of diamonds, right? And jewelry.
Very, very personal items. I so I can see how that would be incredibly beneficial to a jeweler or Helzberg in particular, but any of them, right? I mean, it's very personalized when you're buying something like that. And to your point, it's very high dollar, it's very personal. I mean, you expect high touch when you're purchasing things like that. That yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Wow. That's great. So let's jump back into the sustainability conversation.
Yeah.
It's no longer optional, right? How can retailers balance the eco-friendly initiatives with profitability?
Yeah. It's, regardless of the retail segment, I think that the question is accurate and correct, that the balance is the challenge, right? The brand awareness and desire by consumers to really understand where the product, whether it's a shirt, food item, couch,
Right.
a car, electronic
Sure.
device, really anything comes from is again embedded in the consumer psyche to some extent. I think retailers and manufacturers, frankly, can benefit from this consumer desire, and because it's more than just a pricing outcome or a value statement improvement that drives a higher price point, which they're both very important to support that price point and communicate to the customer for sure. But I think retailers actually can leverage this deep level of data and product component knowledge to their business benefit by using it to go reduce risk and protecting margin. So consumer will win from it because they get what they want from eco-friendly. And your question around profitability is, I think that there's an opportunity there. So let me drill into that a little bit and explain where we're going with this. So if you think about it, we can use this very specific data that retailers know to identify risk in the supply chain. So they
Right.
know because of the environmental, eco-friendly, track and trace type data that they are portraying out to their customer base. They know how these items and components of these items are made, where they're made, um, how they're supplied, how they're sourced. So they can take that data as a retailer, and use it to mitigate the risk of shortages, or risk of a cost increase, or risk of weakened negotiation position because we're single threaded through a single or two suppliers for a product or category of these environmentally eco-friendly products. They can take that intimately known item component data that supports sustainability, and you know what? Go get your AI to work and your buyers to work to go discover similar like kind products that
Sure.
are equally well sourced and made and eco-friendly. That reduces your retail risk, right? So as a retailer, we all now have this data that can decompose this from the components of these eco-friendly items. So they use the data to start AI-driven supplier discovery, right? And go reduce that risk.
So do
And
you
that's
think this
just
becomes a competitive advantage for them?
think I think I think it can be, because all that is capable, because the environment or the eco-friendly details to a much to a much deeper extent. I mean, before this trend occurred, you knew what what the product, how the products were made or what they were made of, but you didn't have as much visibility all the way to the end of the supply chain of, oh, it is this farm who grew this cotton that was sustainably grown that went into the shirt that I'm wearing.
Right.
Retailers actually know that now. That's
Yeah,
a lot of great information. So they can use that to go expand their supply base, reduce their risk, maintain their margin in case the supplier of this product knows that they are a single source product, so they're going to maybe
sure.
ratchet up the cost to them. And you know what? This is another, in my opinion, another win-win for the retailer and the consumer, right? The retailer wins because they get to reduce risk and maintain their margin, and the consumer wins because they get more options now around eco-friendly products.
I think it also keeps people safer, right? Because then they know exactly where things are coming from. They know, like, farm to table, for instance, right? I mean, they know. They know exactly where it started, what it went through. If something happens, they know who to go to. So, last little part of this. If you had to predict one major retail trend for the next few years, what do you think that would be?
Yeah, that's a huge question,
I
really
know.
big question, particularly the one major ones. Uh, I'll weave my way into this. How about that?
Okay,
I
fair.
do think I do think the accelerated convergence of this omni-channel, or
Yeah,
physical plus experience, powered of course by this more intelligent AI. Incredible how fast this is progressing day to day, to best serve the customer and the consumers on kind of how and where and where they want the products. I think that trend will continue tremendously. I think
sure.
if you look at the advancements with sensor aware smart stores like we talked about, and those experiences coupled and interlinked with my digital experience on shopping and buying journeys, it's just an incredible amount of data that the retailers have at their fingertips to figure out how to create not only predictive experiences, which is great, but also adaptive, literally up to the minute adaptive experiences. That to me, and you see a little bit of that now, but I think that's the
Mhm.
next trend on personalization. It is really, um, you know, in the time and in the moment that you're in, what different experience can you offer up that speaks to the customer? And I know we've talked, a ton about AI and data and personalization in the context of us as consumers. But maybe another trend that I imagine is how our associates in the stores and warehouses, right, will even be more effective knowledge workers, having the same information served up to them, right? So think about it in the context of an AI augmented store associate experience. We spend a lot
Right.
of times on what's in it for the retailer, what's in it for the consumer. But let's not forget the store associates, right, who are face to face. If we can make them AI augmented also with all this data, think of the level of service, right, that they can provide. I think that's the next big step too. There's a lot of stuff out there already that way, but it has a long way to go. Store associates experience.
Yeah, I think you're right though. You hear a lot of people be very fearful of like losing their job to AI and things like that. But at the end of the day, I really think that when AI really comes into its own, it's really going to be more about like enhancing people's jobs and the consumer experience rather than taking the jobs. I think it's going to help them do a better job. It's going to help them do less of the mundane activities and give them the opportunity to be more thoughtful and creative and present with their clients.
That's right.
Um,
And no, yeah, I mean, there's obviously no downturn in e-commerce at all going on
sure.
in the market. I think it's still going to continue. But you know what? Generally speaking, people, we're all still human beings, right? And we like to engage with each other in some extent. So the better we can make that store associates experience for when there is an engagement, a face-to-face engagement, that's just tremendous.
Agreed. Agreed. So, what advice would you give retailers and consumers who feel overwhelmed by all these changes?
Yeah, yeah, it's so I'll start with the consumer side first, right? So consumers like me and you and our families and friends and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, hey, look, we continue to be in this amazing age of rapidly advancing customer centricity that's just jaw dropping. It's just amazing to think about it, right? So the opportunity
Yeah.
for us consumers to engage, in any manner that we wish, to understand new products or be informed or inspired by these just amazing creators that are out there, merchandisers. Go try these things out. That's my encouragement, right? And
Yeah.
you can go do often at a low or no cost or low or no risk to you. We now see just unseen before access to products literally dropped at our door, not in
Yeah.
days, not even
True.
in hours, in minutes, right? It's just
Yeah.
truly amazing how we can engage there. So consumers relish in what these new creators are bringing to market. Try out new engagement models. Ask friends or trusted, networks, for their experiences, and engage. And you know what? Give feedback to the retailers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when there is feedback to be given, give feedback to them. We love it. They love it. And hey, if you're a consumer and AI agents and VR and shopping bots all seems a little bit too much for you, then great. Go to the stores and experience just the incredible spaces available to shop and buy, and they're just so much different than they were before. Even your average grocery store now is just amazing to
Yeah.
because those are evolving too. So for consumers, the net of mine is relish in this and engage and appreciate, and then give feedback.
Yeah. That's great. And how about retailers?
Yeah, so for retailers, well, you probably knew I couldn't not, hone in on the AI story.
Yeah. Of course.
So let me talk a little bit about advice when I speak with retailers on AI, and I kind of bucket it in not kind of I do bucket it in really three dimensions related to AI. First and foremost, no surprise data, right? Something that all retailers have known from day one is information is king in servicing your customers and attracting new ones, right? And obviously data is the lifeblood of information. So guess what? Data is also the fuel for lifeblood for AI. So it's really vitally important for retailers as they charge down this AI journey to really understand, have an a data strategy, sorry, a solid
Yeah.
data strategy, and then have that data strategy backed up by a robust enterprise grade AI centric data model, right? That actually drives tangible real benefits. So data is king. Data still is king. You have to start there. There's no such thing as perfect data. But you have to have that in the front of your mind as you're starting down the AI path, because that's what's going to fuel,
Sure.
all of the agents, all of everything that is your data. But start there. Secondly, the three dimensions, focus on business outcomes when assessing and deciding when and where to apply AI. It sounds, easy, but you would be surprised at how many times people chase after, a shiny object, and they realize, well, there's really not that much juice to that squeeze.
Sure.
So really invest, and do the due diligence around what needs to be solved for in your business and where is that tangible business value. Whether it be in the customer experience side, like we talked a lot about, or
Hmm.
maybe in the back office functions like planning or supply chain and HCM. To kind of bring this to context on what this means about focusing on areas that drive business outcomes. And I think this is pretty fascinating. So, even in our Oracle cloud industry application suite, right? So we've delivered roughly over 450 AI capabilities, embedded into the data
Yeah.
model and business
Right.
applications that have delivered. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And because these AI capabilities are built in, our customers can literally just turn them on if they wanted to, all
Right.
450. However, I usually don't recommend activating them all at once to my customers. I recommend, again, moving quickly to get the value, but first discover where the biggest business benefits are, then rapidly and easily activate the capabilities to grab those
Be
benefits and
be
move on to the next.
selective, right? Be selective
Be
in what
selective.
they're
That's
yeah.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
Be selective. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, even when they're built in and they're kind of just delivered up to you, I think there's still
Sure.
some analysis and assessment that needs to be done in order to make sure that the business benefit is there, and then go move on to the other 430 of them or however many more you have left to go,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, the second one is, focus on business outcomes. First was data. Second was focus on business outcomes and really, really be focused on business value. No one needs to do a science experiment to do a science experiment, right? So,
Right. Make sure
and
you're
then
working with
really
a thoughtful partner.
that's right. And then really the third component that I talk often about with retailers on kind of the AI front is really around AI agents specifically. It's kind of the newest entree, if you will, into the AI
Sure.
world. Generative AI was all the rage a year ago and still is. Lots of great use cases around it, and now AI agents have stormed the scene, if you will, in the last 6 to 9 months and are
Yeah.
accelerating. I always advise, I said, think in terms of AI agents as across a broad business process or set of workflows. AI agents can be great at automating a routine task for sure,
Yeah.
right? There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it.
Absolutely.
We've seen that before with chatbots and things like that.
Sure.
But the power really becomes really apparent when you have connected processes of an AI agent, multiple agents together, doing the work, making decisions, and taking actions based on upstream, downstream, adjacent business processes. So,
Yeah.
um, talked a little bit about that maintenance management decision or that business process. That was actually touching many things. It was touching maintenance. It was touching inventory. It was touching policy automation for your contracts. Et cetera, et cetera. Another one that's maybe very important to retailers, but one we haven't talked about too much is HCM example. So think about people are still really critical in retail, as we talked about these associates. So think
Yep.
about an AI agent that is handling the human capital process of
Yeah.
first understanding peak seasons and specific stores plus forecasted traffic in those store locations. So demand forecasting, right? Not a human resource thing, but demand forecasting. Then it's tied to current associate staffing
Right.
capacity and
Exactly.
right? So workforce planning. And then it actually goes and suggests or makes decisions on recruiting months in advance before these seasons, whether it's seasonal employees or opening new stores or expanding a store.
Yeah.
And then, oh, by the way, use generative AI to update, perhaps maybe a tired looking job requisition or post that you have on what you
Sure.
already did before. To update
Right.
that to attract the right talent in this current job market. And then obviously I can go on and on around, hiring, onboarding, training, and making them productive, right?
Sure.
This is eight.
And that
So think
directly
about
impacts supply chain and financials and yeah, it all ties in together when you sit back and like really take a big picture view of it. And I think you're right. That's a very important thing to keep top of mind that it's critical that you look at the larger picture of the business.
agent, that's the that's the current du jour, and it'll keep
Sure.
going. I think the beauty there is connected agents together working to solve a bigger business process or over
Yeah.
a broader span of a business process or workflow. That's where the real value of AI agents come in, and that's usually what I land on with retailers who are trying to discover where they should.
Yeah. That's great advice, Eric. Thank you so much. So, Eric, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights on how retail is evolving. It's clear that personalizations, technology, and sustainability aren't just buzzwords. They are quite literally shaping the future of the industry. If there's one thing I'm taking away from this conversation, it's that retailers who embrace innovation and stay connected to their customers will be the ones who thrive. So, this holiday season will show who's paying attention to their consumers and these amazing innovations taking shape right now. Eric, where can people connect with you to learn more about your work, what you're doing? Where can they talk to you?
Yeah, sure. First of all, let me say again, thank you, Crystal, to
Sure.
you and Proficient for this wonderful opportunity to connect on this consumer market. So truly amazing. By all means, everyone, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you and chat about some of these trends and behaviors. Maybe hear what you're seeing. And then, of course, come visit with me and the rest of the Oracle team at the National Retail Federation, which I'm sure many folks will be there January 11th to the 13th in
Great.
wonderful New York City. We'd love to connect
Perfect.
there too.
We'll connect all this in our show notes so that you guys can reach out to Eric through his Oracle email, through his LinkedIn, and we'll put a link to the show too that you're going to be attending in January. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, share this episode with your network and let us know your thoughts. What trends do you think will define retail in the next few years? So thanks again for tuning in to Decoded Dialogues, and until next time, keep decoding the future. Thanks, Eric.